Thanks for coming out to Roulette tonight. It's going to be a fantastic show. Carla Kihlstedt's Necessary Monsters. Let's hear it. All right. My name is Seth Bosted, and I'm a composer. I'm also the executive director of Access Contemporary Music, the organization producing this festival. Tonight is night 3 of the Relevant Tones 10th anniversary festival. So Relevant Tones is a podcast about the most fascinating time in classical music history right now. Some people say it's all the stuff in the past, and that's really lovely stuff, but it's just a handful of dead people, from like 5 or 6 countries, and today we've got composers from almost every country writing music and exploring all kinds of different musical traditions. So when I say classical music, I'm talking about the broadest possible definition of classical. So we opened up the festival on Thursday with music inspired by Rube Goldberg machines, and the stage was full of all kinds of crazy things. Our guest was Jennifer George, Rube Goldberg's granddaughter. Last night we launched a new series called Songs About Buildings and Moods, exploring music and architecture. Our guest was Daniel Liebeskind. It was a really phenomenal evening. And I am just extremely excited tonight. I met Carla Kihlstedt through the podcast Relevant Tones, which I should mention I host, and was at one time a syndicated radio show back when we had such things, and now continues on as a podcast. So if you have an interest in contemporary classical music, and again, in the broadest possible sense, there are QR codes out in the lobbies. Hope you'll scan it and subscribe and check out Relevant Tones, because we're doing a lot of really cool things, and we're doing a lot of live events like this one as well. So I was doing a show on composers inspired by Jorge Luis Borges, and I used this amazing tool called Google, and it was Googling around, and I found a project called Necessary Monsters by Carla Kihlstedt, which I thought was finished. We'll talk about that with her in a moment. And I think the music is just phenomenal, and we hit it off really well. And I was already kind of planning this podcast festival, and she was saying that she wants to do an album launch party at some point, and I thought, hey, let's do it, at the same time. So we're going to talk just a little bit before, and then there'll be a little bit of time to change over, because it's, as you can see, quite a large ensemble, and we're also live streaming tonight, and all the live streams have sounded fantastic, so the Roulette engineers will need just a little bit of time to tweak the mics and everything. But I've got a couple of special guests tonight in addition to Carla, which is really exciting. So first I want to bring up Stephen Asma, who is a professor of philosophy at Columbia College in Chicago, and he is also the author of a book called On Monsters. What's the subtitle of that, Stephen?
What is this?
Our Worst Imaginary Fears?
Yeah, an unnatural history of our worst fears.
An unnatural history of our worst fears. So Necessary Monsters, I think that it of course, fits very well. So yeah, Stephen, grab a chair. And let's bring up poet Rafael Osés, who is a really integral part of this project as well. All right. And let's have a big hand, please, for Carla Kihlstedt. All right, welcome everybody. We're here.
Hi, so good to
be
here. It's been a minute for me since this kind of room has experienced this kind of like molecules in a room moving with people.
Absolutely.
And focus and enthusiasm.
So we're going to mostly let Carla save her voice, and we do have our special guest, Stephen, who is an expert on all things monsters. Right? Am I wrong?
That's quite a setup. Yeah, I thought I was invited because it was October, and it was Monster Month, and that's a big month for me. And then I heard the music, and it's fantastic. You're in for a treat. And it's a great honor to be invited to speak about it. I could say a few words just about the history of sort of monsters and books like Borges' Book of Imaginary Beings for maybe some context. Would that be all right?
Yeah, no, of course. That's why you're here. Yeah, let's do it.
So one thing that's interesting is Borges writes this in the late 50s, and the title of the book is Book of Imaginary Beings, and it's part of this long tradition that goes back to the ancient Greeks. Herodotus and Ctesias would have written sort of books like this, and then the sort of most seminal book is by a Roman named Pliny the Elder. And Pliny writes this encyclopedia, which is a natural history. And then this has a huge influence on all the medieval bestiaries and menageries, and eventually the kind of museum on paper that you find in the Renaissance and the early modern period. And so Borges is drawing on that in particular, but nobody would have written a book about imaginary beings before the middle of the 1800s, because all the beings they listed, including griffins and unicorns and crazy stuff would have all been potentially real to all previous versions. It's only after sort of the scientific revolution and really the 1800s that people demarcate clearly, oh, there's real stuff and then there's these imaginary creatures. And so when I was rereading it to get ready for this event, I was looking at Borges' foreword, and he makes this really interesting comment where he says, you know, there are these necessary monsters, thus the title, and also unnecessary monsters. But he doesn't say a whole lot about what the difference is. He gives two examples which are really interesting. One, he says, the dragon is a necessary monster because it appears in all these different cultures and at different times. It has a sort of similar morphology, zoology, form. But then he names some other stuff that he thinks are unnecessary monsters or ephemeral monsters. One of which is the chimera, which you may remember is like a lion in front and a sort of I think it's a goat in the middle and a serpent at the back end. And he says, this is an unnecessary monster. And he doesn't
also
really...
impractical, really.
Right. He says, it's just not believable that this, if you pasted this together, it doesn't hang together like a real monster. And so one thing I was thinking about, and this is really sort of a question for Rafael and for Carla, is, you know, when do you have a kind of a coherent monster? Something that holds together as opposed to something that's incoherent. So maybe that's enough just preparatory comments.
Oh, that's great. And I mean, so Carla, can you, or Rafael, either of you, respond to the necessary monsters? He's saving his voice too. Okay. Well, just, you know, in a calm tone.
I'm going to pass the mic to you in a second, but I wanted to remember with you that you might not know this. But when I first was invited, I had got a grant to make a big piece, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I had just finished working on a beautiful piece that I was playing violin and doing a voice part for. That was a collaboration between Rafael and our mutual friend, Mark Orton, a radio drama called Violet Enlightens. And so I had Rafael's words in my head, and I just... like, well, maybe I'll do something with Rafael. And I knew you only a little bit then, really. And I called Mark, who had known you at that point, knew you much better, and said, Mark, do you think Rafael might be into working with me on this project? I have this book. It's about imaginary creatures, and I'm thinking of using that. And Mark was like, no. he said, if I know Rafael, I don't think he's really that into, like, imaginary stuff and like unicorns and dragons and stuff like that. So, I mean, you can ask him.
You're not a Dungeons and Dragons kind of guy or a role-playing kind of person? Not yet. Not yet. Okay, so there's still room, you know. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not... I love Carla Kihlstedt. That's why I did this piece. It's not about Borges, it's not about monsters, it's not about... just so I said yes, of course. And to look through Borges' book, you know, there's a little monster in all of us. And these are just the 9 that I chose, or that chose us. But you look through that book and it's infinite. We can stay on this stage for the rest of our lives putting a string of necessary and unnecessary monsters together. So I tried to avoid the griffin. I tried to avoid all that stuff that didn't talk to me, or the monsters inside me. So I looked at it as a writer. I looked at it as an artist. And somehow these beings are talking about the creative process somehow, of singing and not being heard, of growing, of losing part of yourself but still remaining whole, of existing. You know, so I'm not sure what question I'm answering.
Yeah, no. You're answering everything. I mean, that's because you were tasked with this job of really adapting this, you know, choosing the monsters, kind of figuring out. I mean, a lot of it fell on you, really, in many respects.
And every single second has been a pleasure. And tonight and whenever. I mean, this group that we're going to be playing with tonight has never played this before. So we're doing this again for the first time. For the last time, I don't know.
Hopefully not the last time.
But I hope not either. But to have such a privilege to make with someone that you love, and then to have a privilege to show it in a college in Wisconsin, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, Yerba Buena out in San Francisco, and with each show, have the thing grow and lose part of itself and remain strong and remain what it is, whatever it's going to be, necessary and unnecessary. And so I can't be more grateful for this experience, you know? So
All right.
it's just, and hopefully you feel that when we perform.
Oh, I know, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind.
The show started with light cues and costumes and stuff and more stuff. And as a poet, as an artist, you know, we have a stage at the Museum of Contemporary Art. Hey, let's fill it with chattering teeth or bones or rock salt.
He doesn't mean just like a thing of chattering teeth. He means like an entire extra large pizza box full of wound up chattering teeth that the pizza box was like keeping the lid on. And then at a certain point, someone like spews it across the stage and they all go.
So I got the chance to fantasize and indulge and overindulge unnecessarily. But the strength of the piece has always been the music and hopefully the words. And with each show, it was just a very bloated sort of pageant. The show was not strong enough to support all the costumes and all the stuff that came with it. So
Man, it was fun though.
Absolutely. Every single second has been a pleasure. I'm telling you. What am I trying to tell you right now? It's
Save your voice, save your voice.
Yeah, I'm a little worried.
There's no tomorrow. There's no tomorrow.
Wait, so no chattering teeth tonight? We don't get the chattering
I
teeth?
know.
Oh, okay.
Why does Chicago get the chattering teeth? What are we here in Brooklyn? I mean, chopped liver?
But that's what we wanted. We don't want anything, you know? We just want the music. You guys could be with your eyes closed for the entire night, as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's not about decoration, you know?
Mm-hmm. In fact, we really, I have a little bit of that, like, is there a monster that likes to accumulate things? There must be. I think there is one in that
sure
book.
there
A
is.
dragon
Yeah.
accumulates money, right?
Yeah,
Gold.
that's
I
right,
mean,
yeah.
I have a
Sleeps on
little bit of
pile
that, like, and then we could, and then we could. And so this really setting up for this was actually a really great exercise for me, really good, several times. And the band was really awesome too. I mean, like, or, you know, how about we have wine glasses here, because they're on the record, we could do this. Or I could play a harmonic and you could play, like, we have all these instruments and all these people who are masters of their instruments and can do, you know, you think you've heard all the things that a trumpet can do or that an accordion can do, and they're like, oh, that's, what can we do with less? And so I feel like for this, we've like stripped our monsters down to their fur and skin.
But I love that. I think that's an incredible challenge for composers and for musicians. I mean, to reproduce these kinds of ideas acoustically, because as you said, it is doable. There are all kinds of extended techniques on the instruments that you can do that sound fantastic and hopefully achieve the same result, especially if we all suspend disbelief and buy in, which we'll do.
And these are leaner times.
That they are. Yeah,
These are
and
leaner times, and we are no less rich for it.
That's true.
Does not feel like a step down. This feels like a step forward.
I do have a chattering teeth app on my phone. If you want it, just let me know. I
Maybe
can
if
pull
you
it
guys
out
could all get
at a
that
moment's
at
notice.
the same time. I feel like that would be really good.
You know what you say? I really love what you said about is there a monster that accumulates things. You were talking about necessary monsters and unnecessary monsters in Borges, but are there sort of like, I mean, you know, and the dragon is like a sort of cautionary tale about greed. I mean, you know, talk about the psychological import of monsters. I mean, why are they so fascinating to us? And could you divide them into monsters that represent foibles and you know, potential problems with humans, and just monsters that are fun?
Yeah, the ancients saw monsters as more like biologists might see foreign species. They saw them as natural, just living in faraway places. And so there were very famous monsters of the ancient world. The Blemmies, for example, were humanoid, but they had no head, and their faces jutted out of their chest. The Kynocephali were like humanoid, but they had dogs' heads for, you know, heads. The Cyclops were considered to be a whole species. When you get to the medievals, it starts to get that moral and sort of allegorical quality to it. So the giants then represent what the Greeks would have called hubris, but the Christians called pride. So all of the giants you find in many of the giant stories need to get laid low by justice. And this is true, for example, in the East. You have this wonderful tradition of the hungry ghosts. I'm from Chicago, and I was walking around, and you have coffee shops called the Hungry Ghost, and I was laughing because that's a very powerful tradition in Asian culture. And
Spirited Away. You've just totally clarified Spirited Away for me.
Okay, that's it. Yeah. That's when you're like a glutton, you will come back either always hungry, like a hungry ghost, and usually you have a pinhole mouth or no mouth at all, so you're being, in a sense, punished for your gluttony, and there's all kinds of other foul stuff, which I don't want to get into because it's gruesome. But yeah, a lot of times monsters are part of these morality allegories, and then I think it's in the 20th century that you get the idea of the internal monster. It goes back to Plato, but Freud really gives us this language. It's these libidinal or aggressive tendencies within, the sort of darker elements which we're supposed to, well, they just seem alien. They don't seem like us, and then they sort of erupt out. And I know that I heard some of that happening in the composition now and then, too, and that those aren't ever going to go away because they're inside us. So we sort of project them out into the external world and try to repudiate them, but they're not really going to go anywhere.
And that's part of what we talked about when I originally talked with you about this project. And Borges has his idea of necessary monsters, but it seems to me, Carla and Rafael, that you're, in the description for the show, it says something about the monsters that live in the heads of each one of us. Necessary monsters. It's almost like we have to have these things inside of us.
I think all the ones that we have now spent 15 years with. We began this project 15 years ago. So I think for me, they've gone through an evolution of feeling like, oh, this is that one, and that's that one, and now I know where they live in me, and it really is useful to be able to name them and be like, oh, like what I just said, that was my ink monkey, or like that. And the ink monkey is a really interesting one. And you might tell me if you know more about this. The ink monkey comes, I believe, from Chinese mythology, but I recently, just a few months ago, was doing a little research when we were getting back into this, and I found an article that mentions that that some naturalists actually believe that the ink monkey exists, that it's a 4-inch monkey, and it sits on your desk. And this is interesting, the translation between what the real monkey would have done and where it would have been, and where the mythological monkey occurs. And evidently the scribes or the people writing wasn't something you could just, wasn't like this back then, right? Like involved like making the ink, and it was a whole very, very elaborate process. And evidently, the person writing this was like one step back from saying this is true, but did say that there are some people believe that these little 4-inch monkeys would help these scribes with the process of, I'm not sure if it was the blotting or the making of the ink, but were actually useful in some way because of their size in the process of writing. And I can't be more specific than that. But the ink monkey would sit on their desk and watch while they wrote. And I imagine they would be, waiting for the next time they were going to be useful in whatever part of the process that was. And but I love the fact that now the ink monkey, as it morphed from the real world into mythology, and there's definitely an environmental unspoken element to that transition. But as it morphed into like a story we tell it as the ink monkey sitting there judging your every word and watching you write, saying, oh, God, you are so foolish. And like, because what it wants to do is drink the monkey. It's the ink monkey's ink, and you're just wasting it. And so we project this idea of the ink monkey being of our own self-criticism onto the ink monkey. And for me, as a teacher, I teach composition, and so the ink monkey, we're all very familiar with our own internal judge and critic, and it's a really useful part of the process. And I finally, just in the last few months, I finally had this moment with a student where I was like, wait a minute, so you're being felled by your ink monkey. And I am very familiar with this because I have also been felled by my ink monkey many times. But here's what you need to do. You can't cut these things out of yourself. You can't. You cannot cut. But you can promise the ink monkey a seat at the head of the table in the next chapter of the process. You can say, okay, I need you. You're like really, but just for now, can you just wait by the door? And then look at this throne I'm gonna give you in a minute. Once I've done like all this, then you're gonna come back and you're gonna be my editor. So I feel like the making it an external thing allows us to make friends with them in a way. So I like that Borges talks about them. Really, the necessariness of them is real.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent example because and that's what Borges is really good at. It's not that the monsters are necessarily frightening. Oftentimes they can be helpers. They're just fantastical creatures. But we're now learning from psychology that creative visualization like this and imaginative work like this is extremely healthy for creative process and also in clinical settings for overcoming trauma. So a lot of times in traumatic situations, clinicians are using monster narratives and imagery to help people work through really difficult stuff by reimagining it in this way.
Oh, that's really fascinating. Absolutely. Carla, is there anything else you want to tell us about the project before we get it going? There is.
I want to mention that this is not just we're so grateful for you for having invited us, because without that we would not have had this deadline to actually finish the album and have it printed in ink in a 50-page book with a download code on the back that we just picked up from the printers in Long Island, Data Graphic, beautiful, beautiful generations old printing company that can do anything, and we have a limited run of books, and we have them here for sale. And if you buy a book, there's a download code on the back where you can get the album. We also have download cards if you just want to walk away with just the album and not the book. But this is a really exciting celebration because this has been a really long time coming, and so many people have helped us along the way. There have been so many musicians and designers and arrangers and directors and just so many people have changed this project that for sure to say this is Carla Kihlstedt's Necessary Monsters is not correct, and even to say this is Carla Kihlstedt and Rafael's Necessary Monsters is not correct. It's just, we decided to print all the names of everyone in the book, people who funded it, people who and it's kind of humbling just what a process. So just a huge yawp to the sky to everyone who over the last 15 years has, including you, and including Roulette, and Eli, who's making us sound good tonight, and just everyone. So much gratitude, and there's no way to really tell you guys about all those people except to say,
no, let's do it. Go ahead. Go ahead and tell us. No, I'm kidding.
2 hours later.
No, this is a really special evening. And Carla, I'm grateful that you're part of the Relevant Tones Festival. I mean, I think it's the best way to go out. When we talked, a year ago or something, it was in the middle of COVID, and doing all this research on Borges, and I find your piece, and never in my dreams would I believe that I would be a part of, completing this stage of the project, because you may very well live with this project forever, who knows, but this stage of the project. So I'm very pleased because, as Stephen said, I mean, it's a phenomenal piece of art. It's not just music, it's everything. And it's a really great piece of art, and it's one of those things that stays with you, and you can think about it, and think about it in so many different ways, the psychological aspects of it, just the awesome music. I mean, I love the way you introduce each creature before the piece starts. I think that's a really kind of whimsical and fun way to do it. But then some of them are like, the more you think about it, you're like, whoa, that's really heavy. So there's just, it's a really multi-layered, multifaceted project in so many respects. And just, congratulations.
Thank you. Anna Singer, who I think is now Anna Hurd, who designed the book. I just want to point out one thing that might elude you if you're not looking for it. Every single thing in the book including the icons of the monsters and the images that describe them, are made only using typewriter font elements. And some of that is obvious. The whole thing is in typewriter font, but every monster has an icon, and it's only made from reconfigured typewriter elements.
Which is really cool. And those are available for sale in the lobby?
They are, yes.
And for folks watching on the live stream, is there any place to get them, or will there be online?
There will be. It'll take me a few weeks. I have a lot of people whom I need to send the book to. So we're going to see how many are left once I've done that. And then we will put the rest up on Bandcamp, on my Carla Kihlstedt Bandcamp page, which is where the album lives. If you want to just download it, you can go to Bandcamp and do a search for my name. I'm sorry, the Swedes put extra letters in their names. There it is. Is there Carla Kihlstedt? No, it's not. Kihl, figure out how to spell it. And you can, and I just started this Bandcamp page, so it's the only thing up there.
Fantastic. All right, great. Stephen, thanks so much for coming out and lending your expertise to this tonight. Rafael and Carla, I mean, it's just, you have this huge performance in front of you. Thank you for chatting a little bit with us before the show. It's just so nice to get these insights for everybody. And we're going to take a little break while we get ready to make sure the live stream sounds as great as possible and make sure it sounds as great as possible in here. And we will be back with Necessary Monsters in just a few minutes. So if you're watching at home, just give us a few minutes, and same thing in the house. And again, you can find Relevant Tones anywhere you get your podcasts. It's one of the only podcasts out there about contemporary classical music, so check it out. And in a few moments, we will welcome Carla and Rafael and the band to the stage for Necessary Monsters. Thanks, everybody.
We got rid of the teeth, but we kept the marxophone.
An animal dreamed, being that sings unsung. Nothing but a song, or at least wishing that were so. This beast is blessed with unprecedented thoughtlessness. As pure as the unspoken word, she yelps and howls joyously in the forest, a guileless song sung for no one. Description: she is great and beautiful and dumb, the most delicate and glorious of all beasts. Voice: thick coming trills, a glossy throat, wonders at its song. Habitat: the thickest center of untraveled woods. The squonk: being that cries at the drop of a tear. The squonk is sorrow herself, the embodiment of sadness, a creature of rare elegance and melancholy, Her capacity for compassion knows no bounds. When cornered, she has the unique ability to entirely evaporate in tears, thereby returning her salt to the earth. Description: a molding dollop ready for deduction, a sprung set of locks, a frothy and glittering body of water, a great salt lake. Voice: a sort of whale song, a soothing and wavering blubber. Habitat: Pennsylvania coal country, Minnesota forests. Hochigin, being that would rather leave us speechless. Spiteful and suspicious, the Hochigin is a miserly bushman found on the various plains of places. With a wariness of language and a hatred of animals, especially men and monkeys, he stockpiles speech with hostile vengeance. Description: envious, stoopy, an extraordinary hoarder, the type that takes his toys home in a huff. Voice: caught breath, a choral shh. Habitat: wherever everything is best unsaid.
I ain't no baby in no mood. I ain't no baby, ain't no mood to smile. I won't even, 'cause our ears are alike. I won't even, 'cause our mouths are alike. I ain't no baby in no mood to smile. I won't able, 'cause our ears are alike. I won't able, no, 'cause our eyes are alike. Nothing will ever make me say do they think they're talking to? Calling me cutie, begging
the Nisna, being that as half is whole. A simple case of addition by subtraction, the Nisna is an unfinished dream. Half thought, half life, half asked, half cocked, half blood, half breed, half aware, half awake, and half asleep. A phantom limb.
Tony, Tony, look around. Something's lost and must be found.
Description, a partial completion. It leaves where it goes, destined for less. Enough. Voice drops off. Habitat, here and there, a beach in Borneo.
On an island in the sea of a sea is an its tongue lies twisted in the sand. Head, heart, and hand are spread apart, dropped or abandoned on the Bornean shore. Dead. With French agility, the splinters persists, hopes on in the pitch, a single limb, growing lighter at each step and searching for no other better half. None of it is missing. None of it is gone.
Yet littered on the beach, its trail following the way of all flesh, its tail drags along discarded sweetmeat. This being, far from cured, is endowed with speech, can tell a tale.
Saint Anthony of Padua, patron of lost things. Saint Anthony of Padua, patron of amputees, gave a famous sermon to fishes on the bank of 'cause their ears were alive with vocal cords of vanilla beans, burnt matches and tear jerky. The word was made silver. Oh, blessed tongue that simple adventure held in his tender hands to kiss fish this end. The man
Next slide, please. The double. Being that is that being. The double is the you who watches without from within, within from without. It is the truth of the you can never know, which hides endlessly in your shadow, just out of sight. Description: an interminable tag-along, a doppelganger. Voice: an echo or else gepetic. Habitat: where the other half lives.
Everyone on this Ferris wheel is me. A revolving door in which I never see myself. The riddle with me in the middle, impossible to solve.
Whose is the hand up my back?
The other tenant in the house I rent.
Who throws a voice through me?
My invisible sibling.
What am I called behind my back?
The false
What is my surname?
I speak out of both sides of my mouth, but I only hear half what I say. Coming and going, not knowing, in through the outdoor. I am speaking out of both sides of my mouth. A better person, I bet, the me I've never met.
The ink monkey. Being that indicts writing, resents text. The ink monkey is a critic with an unwritten grudge, an unforgiving censor of the sensory, the ultimate editor. An ink junkie ever since the liquid's been in print. This dumb simian hates, more than anything, the writer's aimless, I don't know about aimless, wasteful, well, I don't know about wasteful, but ramblings, maybe like this one. Sorry. Description, feral. Voice, gravel. Habitat, inkwell. a one-eyed being, being that is what it ate. This dashing little twerp is the culmination of culture, pinnacle of evolution, apex of a migratory formation ever stretching toward tomorrow, the living end. He is the light at the end of his own tunnel vision. Head of the class, fruit of the womb, king of all kin, the filial full of itself, the mongrel with a pedigree, the heir that puts on airs, he is the biggest cock on the block. Description, oof. You know the type. Lives on lamb's milk, eats the cat's pajamas, thinks it's the crown of creation and wears it out. Voice, a sophisticated singer, a baritone blowhard, vulgar. Habitat, the public domain, architectural structures, various vehicles, restaurants, theaters, halls of power.
My blood has a history, a legacy. My family has a tree, no relative shrubbery. I'm a creature of numerous nomenclatures, a no-man eater, unadorned with double features. A being, one-eyed, a being, one-eyed being, being one-eyed, a one-eyed being, being a one-eyed being one and only. I am the monkey's nephew. In his own image, I'm the fish with legs, built to last. The cultivated primate, manicured from head to hoof, with talons tapered to scratch my uncle's eyes out. A being, one-eyed, a being, one-eyed, a
An unworthy successor, perhaps, but better said, you've lost an animal and gained a man. The Lamed Vufniks, being that carries on, a yeoman no one. Patient, humble, and all but invisible, a Lamed Vufnik cannot be named, else his humility would be shattered, and the lowly, elevated place which his purity holds in this world would vanish. He unknowingly justifies all of mankind with unremarkable grace. And every man, and any man, but nobody's nobody. Description. Some schmo. A He-Man milquetoast, hunched and radiant, carries himself with characteristic anonymity. Voice, often interrupted, no song. Habitat, undisclosed, random, hidden anchor holds. Just men scour us by saint light. Just men guard us by the hour, silent. Just men trust the substratum. Just men tower underneath us. Just men constitute a wishing well. Just men tether the nether. Just men speak a dark streak. Just men spoke a green circle. Just men sweep the seafloor. Just men till the riverbeds. Just men plumb. Just men crawl on their shoulders. Just men bury their hands among us. Just men see the world like Spaniards. Just men have no retinue. Just men canvas. Just men sprawl. Just men bend. Just men place. Just men strut. Just men justify. Just men testify. Just men make an X. Just men act as axes. Just men join the union. Just men wear boots to sleep. Just men go without saying. Just men tender resignation. Just men arrive and depart. Just men are sometimes just women. Just men are civil servants. Just men are public defenders. Just men are a vanguard. Just men are a general assembly. Just men are a kingdom. Just men are pillars of salt.
Moving target, a human fortress, a living
Odradek. Being that was, is, and will be. Odradek is all that remains. He is an assemblage of odds and ends, bits and scraps, bric-a-brac, and loosened parts held fast with faded memories. Attached and detached, he is an elaborate dust bunny of orbiting detritus. Hapless and laughable, yes, but no one's practical joke. It's made of us. Objective, without purpose, Odradek is the uninvited house guest that never leaves. A timeless, unfinished New Year's Eve noisemaker, year after year after year after year after year. Odradek will outlast us all. Description, as is. A domestic pest. Rusted watchworks. Voice, lungless laughter. Habitat, one in every home.
There's a star on the stairs. There's a star on the stairs. A spider, a spur, a crab, a crank, a cat toy, broken and intact. Wooden with snapped black sutures. Bitten bakery string with fish line gnarled in its wings. There's a star on the stairs ascending, and there's a star on the stairs, a weathered pinwheel, an untold spindle, a star with a kickstand, misunderstood. Down it can bob in the sky and orbit the neighborhood. It hides and rises in degrees. There's a star on the stairs, staring.
A derelict Christmas decoration on a gutter or roof of a garage, at times like tackle in the trees.
Cackles like a ratchet. A dry heave of leaves sits knotted, tangled in stitches, never tells all that it sees. There's a star on the stairs. There's a star on the stairs. There's a star on the stairs. Thank you so much. We'll be out there with books and have chit chat and drinks and whatnot.